everyone, what is up and welcome back to my channel. As you guys can tell from the title of today's video, I've accumulated some books that I've had on my shelf for way too long that I wanted to read for one reason or another at one point in time in my life and I never got around to. So I'm bumping these books up to the top of my TBR. One of these books actually is just a book that I recently found out about that I needed to read. But most of these are books that for, like I said, one reason or another, I had a great desire to read, but never got around to them. And I have decided to show them to you today because a lot of these are well-known, well-loved books that a lot of people have read, that have recommended to me. Some of these have been made into television shows and therefore I need to read them as soon as possible. But today I wanted to sit down and just show you. So the first book I have to show you is actually Big Little Lies by Lane Moriarty. This is a book that follows three women, I believe, who have great secrets within themselves, but our main character moves to this town and meets the other two moms, and within that they have their own kind of like secret little group of bad things that essentially happen within their families. One of the women is really quick to not forgive people, and in that way, I feel like she's probably quick to not forget things that happen. So there are a lot of secrets within the three women in their group, but this is a book that I believe they made into a television show, which is why I really, really wanted to read it. I wanted to read it because I had a great interest in watching the show, but never read the book. And I'm not one of those people who can watch the show and then read the book. I need to read the book first. And I still want to watch it. So I was like, you know what? It's just time that you sit down and read it. I am really excited. I believe this was like I don't know, somebody's like book club pick of the month as well. I think it was the woman who actually acts in the show whose name I cannot remember right now. I keep wanting to say Renelle Zellweger, but I don't think that's right. I don't remember her name, but either way, this is a book that I really want to read this year because it was really high on my TBR at one point in time, but it did unfortunately fall off, and I think it's time that I just sit down and finally read this. If you've read any of these books, let me know down below what you thought of them. If I should read them, if I should just get rid of them, because like I said, a lot of these have been sitting on my shelves for a very long time. So let me know if you've read this book and what you thought of it, or if you think that I could just watch the show without reading it, let me know that too. Speaking of books that were made into television shows, I actually heard about this from a channel called The Know, the K-N-O-W. It is a mostly gaming, sometimes they have news, sometimes they have, like movie stuff on there, mostly gaming. But one of the main women who does the show is a woman named Ashley, who I have the biggest girl crush on. It's not even funny. I absolutely love her. I might actually just have a full gay crush on her, but whatever. Anyway, she was talking about this show. She was talking about the book and how she read the book, and she was really excited to watch the television show, and it is a sci-fi, and I was like, well, damn, I'm gonna watch it. And then she mentioned it was a book, and I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna read it and then watch it. My husband's already watched it, but it would be Altered Carbon by Richard Morgan. This is a sci-fi show essentially about a man who hires basically a time traveler. They are able to transport each other into different bodies depending on when they are brought back. And it follows him being hired to find the person who assassinated the man who actually hires him. So it's really confusing, but from what I've heard from my husband, the show was fantastic. I've seen little bits and pieces of it, but I definitely still want to read the book. It is a pretty hefty book, but I think it's going to be really enjoyable. I've been totally digging sci-fi this year, or last year, I guess it is 2019, and I really want to get around to this. I was so hyped when the show first came out to read this book, but it kind of fell off. And from what I've seen of the show and what I've talked to my husband about, it seems really interesting. So I don't know why it's taken me so long to finally add that to my TBR, but here we are. Now, the next book that I have here is actually a book by one of my very favorite authors. It would be Alex White. They write A Big Ship at the Edge of the Universe. That whole series I absolutely love. And they wrote another book called Every Mountain Made Low. I was not in a good mindset to read this when I attempted to read this, and they actually told me that to be in a good mindset to read it because it is very heavy. It follows our main character, Loxley. She is, I believe, autistic, and she's also able to see ghosts, and they do really affect her painfully. And her best friend, and I believe love interest, goes missing in this book, and she's trying to track them down. And like I said, I read the first couple of chapters of this and it is very brutal. Loxley does live a pretty brutal life, but I do really want to read this because I love Alex's writing. I truly love everything that they've written so far. I do also own the Alien book that they wrote, and I don't know why I haven't read that either. That should probably be on this list now that I think about it, but this is really high for me because I think I'm in a good enough mental state that I could read this, and this is just something that I want to do to support them and just show them, I do value them as an author. I think that's really important to do for your favorite authors, but I did buy this like a year ago almost, and I think it's time to finally sit down and get into it. Now, this next book I have on here is actually a series. It's a 4-part series, and I know diddly about it other than when I bought it, it was almost 4 years ago. A coworker recommended it to me and said that I would really, really like it, and I just thought it was time to read it. Apparently it has a lot of conspiracy. I don't know if it's fantasy. I believe it's like kind of steampunky sci-fi. I could be completely wrong, but it is Otherland by Tad Williams. I will leave the Goodreads description for this down below because I kind of want to go into this very, very blind. Like I said, I don't know the genre. I don't know much about this, but this is another series that I've had on my shelves for a very long time. I love these editions as well. They're like really, really big, like mass market paperback, which are some of my very favorites. I know a lot of people hate them, but I do not. The issue of this series is it's huge, and I think that's why I never read it, because each book is like 600 pages in this paperback format. Oh, this one's 780 pages. And it just kind of was really daunting and kind of scary to me. But this one is on here because, on this list, because I've had it for so long and I know nothing about it and I haven't read it. And what the hell am I doing? Why do I own books that I haven't read or don't want to read or just kind of forgot about? So I really want to sit down and read this series this year as well. The next book I have here was actually sent to me by AJ for my birthday or Christmas last year. And I still haven't read it, but it is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm probably pronouncing that right. But essentially what this book follows is a group of people, essentially the entirety of the human race that's left on Earth. They decide to leave Earth to find a new Earth, essentially a new place to populate and live because their planet is dying. But the catch is they find a planet, or they hear of a planet that has been completely terraformed and is ready for human life, and they go there, but it's not what they thought it was. It's actually essentially a prison and humanity's worst nightmare on this planet. And I really want to read that. First off, it is set in space, which, like I said, I've been really digging sci-fi this year. Second off, I've had this book on my shelves for almost an entire year. So it is time to finally get around to reading it, and it is sci-fi. It has won a ton of awards, the Arthur C. Clarke Award, like Book of the Year. I need to read it. And I've heard it has really, really fantastic world building, which I want to get more into in 2019 as well, because I focused a lot on characters and character interactions last year, and I really want to find some good examples of great world building, and I've heard that this book definitely delivers. Now, the last book I have on here is actually purely on here because I am so excited to read it. All I have been reading recently have been like our quarterly book club pick, which I will leave a video for up above if you guys would like to join us. The live stream, I believe, is January 26th. I am reading the book for that right now, but I've been focusing a lot on like sci-fi. I've been reading a lot of Star Wars books, been reading a lot of fantasy, and I think it's time to actually read something that is more nonfiction, but it also has like a research element to it, and that would be Blitz. So this is a book by Norman Ohler. It is about drugs during World War II. If you guys did not know, I adore history. History was always my favorite subject, history and geography. They were really interesting to me, and the science-based information, the historical-based information around this book is apparently fantastic. My husband listened to a podcast about it, and I got to hear little snippets of it. I haven't gone back and listened to the whole thing because I just want to read the book instead. But it follows Hitler and his cabinet and just everybody in power during World War II and the effects of drugs and the decisions that they made based on that, and just how crazy it was back then. So it's drugs in the Third Reich. And I'm really excited to read this. Once again, this is not a historical fiction. This is not fantasy. This is a historical book and more of a research book. So I'm really excited to read this. Also, it just has like a ton of pictures and like documents and stuff in it. And I just really want to fill my brain with knowledge about this for some reason. World War II is my favorite setting for history, like learning about history. It is the most intriguing to me, probably because it was the most brutal. And a lot of obviously really terrible things came of it, but some really great things came of it. So I'm really excited to read this and get a completely different perspective on World War II, because I didn't know this was a thing. Like, even being really into history, I had no idea. And I think that's really awesome that they have written this book, that Norman has written this book. And I really want to just consume all of the knowledge about this subject, and I think this is a great book to start with. The only thing I don't like about it is the color. I hate this color. Highlighter yellow. Okay, look, I don't like yellow at all. I think yellow is an ugly color, but this highlighter yellow color, whew, I do not want to carry this around with me because it's just so damn ugly. All right, guys, so that is it. My very random selections for books that I want to get around to in 2019. Now, I could have an entirely different list of books that I am really, really excited for because I just know I'm gonna love them, but I really wanted to focus on books that I've just had for a long time for whatever the reason may be, and just why I really wanted to read them. So I hope you guys enjoyed a different take on the books that I really want to get around to for 2019. If you want to see a version of this, just the books that I'm really excited to read in 2019, maybe it's like a new release that I know is coming out. King of Scars is coming out. I'm really excited about that. Let me know down below and I can definitely film that next week. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and think about subscribing. I love you so much and I will see you in my next video. Bye!